Nebraska might be looking to add a quarterback this summer, and it could turn out to be a big deal. We talk about it next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Okay, here we go. Welcome in. Let's talk quarterbacks today, as Mitch mentioned there in the cold open. So there was a little, I guess I wouldn't call it movement yet, but maybe pre-movement, I suppose. Nebraska had a post-grad camp. Yeah, something like that. Nebraska had a post-grad camp on Monday. They worked out, probably 30, 40 kids came down to work out and get a shot to get looked at by Nebraska's coaches. And Nebraska took they found out about a quarterback that just so happened to be the NAIA National Player of the Year last year, who was at their camp on Monday.
Just walked in the door. There he is.
Crazy. That and another one. Mitch, so you were there. Just explain this to me, how this all kind of went down on Monday.
Sure. Yeah, we can get right into that. And then we'll talk later in the show about like the potential impact of what this could have, the likelihood that Nebraska is actually going to extend it would be a walk-on offer, I think, but some kind of an offer to one of these two quarterbacks. So here's how it went down. I showed up at Memorial Stadium about 12:30, and I pulled in and the doors were locked, and there were about 24 guys in various forms of workout gear, bags, some in hats, might have seen a guy in street clothes, who knows, standing outside of the northwest corner of Memorial Stadium. So down by like the will call window, the corner closest to the West Stadium entrance. And I went in the West doors and was in the stadium, and the scoreboard was on, and there was a Gatorade tent out there, and I thought they were having the camp in the stadium. It looked like it. There were some event staff hanging around, and nobody came in. And at 1:00, the gates opened, and this group of guys, players, walked in, all high school graduates, some college graduates. I don't know. There might have been some 30-year-old guys there for all I know. They get paraded and kind of shuffled through the south concourse, the north concourse of the stadium, over toward the new facility. So it's like, here's a look at our stadium, put your eyes on it. And then you're going to go into the new Osborne Complex building. And they walked out into the Hawk Center through the locker room. Through the weight room. And it was there that the Nebraska coaches awaited. And look, nobody had any idea that Jalyn Gramstad was going to be there, this NAIA Player of the Year who threw for 3,600 yards at Northwestern Iowa College. He signed up on Saturday night, he told me, and just decided to drive down 3 hours from Orange City, Iowa, where he lives. That's where Northwestern is located, near Sioux City. And he walked in and said, "Hey, I play quarterback," and they put him over with the quarterbacks, and Glenn Thomas came out, and there was another kid there from Dodge City, Kansas Community College, who's named Bryce Conover, and they both looked pretty good. I thought they both. I was sitting with some other media people, and Max Olson, my coworker at the Athletic, was there, and he was busy looking at whatever, and was on his phone. I mean, it's a 2.5 hour camp, and the quarterback started throwing into a net that was like a little out route, like 15 yards. And I was tapping him on the knee, like, "Hey, look at that guy. Like, he's throwing the ball pretty well." I have no clue who that is, but he's got some zip on his throw. And look at that kid's footwork. I mean, I'm not a scout, but was kind of impressed, and Max was completely ignoring me. He was just, his head was in his phone, and I'm like, hey, he's going to throw again. Look, that turned out to be Gramstad.
Wow. I mean, awesome. Great call by you. You should be a scout, like first of all. I wonder, if Nebraska, because we've been talking about their situation, and I think we'll dive more into it in just a minute here. But like, I wonder if in the back of their head, Matt Rule or the coaching staff thought like, hey, we're just going to kind of slow play this. We are generally okay going into the season with what they currently have. No offers have been extended as of this moment. No walk-on offers have been extended as of this moment, at least that we know of, from that quarterback position. So they thought, yeah, we're all right. We got what we got. The starters in the room. We're a little thinner than we want to be. And so we can kind of slow play it. And if anything falls in our lap this summer, I mean, Matt Rule kind of said as much. I don't know if this was part of the plan. I don't know how it could have been, because nobody expected the NAIA National Player of the Year to show up, or a kid that had some experience from a junior college. But I don't know. They were always going to have the post grad camp. I just wonder if this was kind of the plan all along, I suppose, for Nebraska and how they approach the quarterback situation.
Going back and listening to Rule's comments after the spring game, and I asked him the question, kind of a leading question, which is a bad idea, but I asked him a question after the spring game about if they were good with everything at that position. Like, in the context of Dylan Raiola just lighting up Memorial Stadium and Heinrich Haarberg looking good and Danny Kaelin appearing on track, I just thought my own personal view of it in that moment was, wow, they came through this period in March and April in pretty good shape at QB, and I think they might be set and good to go. And I wonder if Matt Rule feels the same way. And he kind of said, no, we're always on the lookout for a quarterback. And he talked for 60 seconds or so. I should have pulled up that audio, but I didn't, about the QB position. And to paraphrase him, he said, we will take someone if the situation presents itself. And it may have just presented itself on Monday.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, has it presented itself? And I wonder, because it's not like they have great options from a scholarship perspective behind, and we could talk about this in a minute, kind of what it means for Heinrich Haarberg. But I mean, so you talked to the quarterback from Northwestern.
I talked to both of them. Yeah, I talked to both of them, and yeah, there's an article up on The Athletic that posted on Tuesday afternoon, interviews with both guys. Yeah.
So I mean, the backstory on them is really interesting. Like you said, the decision didn't come from Jalyn Gramstad. Sorry, I was blanking on his name real quick. From Gramstad to like come up until like 48 hours before he actually came up, which is amazing. Yeah. Any backstory on Conover? Because that's the name. Gramstad was the name that was kind of getting talked about a lot over yesterday after the camp happened on Monday. Nothing a whole lot about Conover. I guess what's interesting to you about him?
Well, he started his career at Western Colorado, a D2 school. Attended high school in Colorado, and he's a little bit interested in the Buffs too. Hard to say if the Buffs would be interested in him. He played last season, redshirted his first year at Western Colorado, and then played at Dodge City Community College in Kansas last season. And there were two quarterbacks there. He was the second of the two as far as his yardage. Threw for 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, completion percentage in the high 40s. So it's not something that jumps off the page. He's 20 years old, in the same way that it does with Gramstad, the NAIA quarterback, which is like D3 football. So it's a lower level. But watching the two of them, and Conover's bigger, he's 6 foot, 215 pounds. Gramstad's like 5'10" and a half, 195. I mean, there's not big guys. Dylan Raiola was out there, and I'll talk too about Dylan Raiola when we get to the next segment and how he was watching the camp, and that was interesting. But yeah, I to me, Gramstad, there's a lot more intrigue there with Gramstad because of his experience and the fact that he threw for 600 yards, 6,000 yards, I'm sorry, in his career. He started at Northwestern as a DB and played DB for a season. And there was a COVID season that didn't count, and he was a DB then. And then in 21, he was a DB, moved to quarterback in 22. They won the national championship at the NAIA level in 22, finished runner-up last season. He was 14-1 last season. I mean, he's a winner. That's what came across to me about Jalyn. He's a dude. Like I didn't feel like he was trying to impress anybody with what he was doing out there at the camp. When I talked to him, I didn't get that vibe. He was riding a mower at the golf course that he works at in Orange City, and he called me, said, "Give me 20 minutes." And he called me like from the mower. And I mean, very laid back, just like, again, not trying to impress anybody. And I think that would go over pretty well in the room that he would be walking into if they do make him an offer. Conover, normal kid, like, he was friendly. And he, more importantly, he showed a good arm when he was out there working with Glenn Thomas.
It's definitely the vibe I got from Gramstad while reading all the stuff, and including what you wrote. It's just like, yeah, I might as well show up at this camp and, throw my best out there and kind of see what happens.
I liked him because he did all this media, but it was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Like, I play football. That's what I do, man. I mean, I just want to give myself the chance. Like, he thought about walking on at Nebraska in 2020, but it was COVID. He thought about coming to this camp last year, but he had something good going at Northwestern, and then this year he just didn't want to leave it out there. He said he didn't want to do something or skip something that he might regret down the road.
I love it. So now we'll talk about it coming back in a second here. If Nebraska, with an addition in the quarterback room, what changes about that room? So we'll get that on the other side. But I do want to mention before we take a break here. So it's getting a little busy around Omaha. The College World Series is starting on Friday. We will have a podcast on Friday morning. But as you could tell, we've kind of cut down to 3 days a week over the summer here. We're going to be in different places and different locations next week. We're still going to find you a way to get 3 podcasts somewhere, somehow, but they may be in different times than you're used to. So just wanted to warn you about that.
We'll try to post them at the same time, but who knows when they're going to be recorded? It could be 2 a.m. for all we know.
Right, exactly. And another good opportunity for us to remind you that if you're a local business and you listen to the show and you'd like to advertise with us, we'd love to help you out as well. So the opportunity is there for you. You can email us at lockedonneb@gmail.com, or you could find either of our work emails. Mitch's are on his stories, and mine I give out on my show all the time. So you guys can advertise with us here in the Locked On Nebraska podcast. We'd be happy to have you. All right, quick break. We'll talk about the quarterback room on the other side.
All right, just a minute here to tell you about Gametime, which is a sponsor of the Locked On podcasts. We have gone over for the past couple of months the ease with which you can find tickets to Major League Baseball games. But now that the NBA season is winding to an end, there's still time. If you're listening to this show, who knows where you're at? Maybe you want to go to the NBA Finals. It's 2-0 Celtics. You could be running out of opportunities. The series is shifting back to Dallas for 2 games starting tonight, Wednesday night. So if you want to go, check out Gametime. It's the opportunity is there. It makes getting tickets to the NBA Finals easier and faster than any alternative method. Prices on the app go down, even for the NBA Finals. The closer it gets to tip. Take advantage of great last-minute deals. See all-in pricing. Check out views from your seat. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app today. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed.
All right,
we're back for segment 2. Yeah, this is me. Sorry about stepping on you there. As we mentioned, podcast continues this week. College World Series is starting Friday in Omaha. Connor's going to be busy working. I'm going to be busy working at that event. I'm traveling a little bit next week, but we will still be coming to you from wherever we are. Let's take a step back here and look a little bit about what the potential impact of a new quarterback this summer could have on Nebraska. Connor, I think that if Nebraska does decide to take one of these players, and right now, when I talked to them on Tuesday, I asked, so what was the message that you got leaving Lincoln? And they both said that the coaches told them that to wait, to stay tuned, and that they would be hearing from them, with something. And I do think that maybe they're trying to make a decision between the two players, or they could also just be trying to make a decision about whether this is something that they want to do in adding another quarterback. If they do it, it's my belief that this has more of an impact on Heinrich Haarberg and Daniel Kaelin than it does on Dylan Raiola. Are you on board with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, a good way to look at it is Dylan Raiola is kind of, off in his own. You got to treat him differently because he's a starting quarterback, and that's how it kind of goes. So, Nebraska had an interesting situation as it pertained to the backups or the people that were not going to be the starting quarterback this year. They have a freshman who hasn't played yet, and they have a guy who filled in admirably last year and is, but is a supreme, like a really, really good athlete that they feel like they could do different things with. And that's who you have in your quarterback room at the moment. So if you put in another guy who you feel like you could comfortably put in the game and operate as a quarterback with all the experience that Gramstad, a guy like Gramstad has, then it makes things, I think it changes the game drastically for Heinrich Haarberg. I mean, I think you're kind of allowing him to do some different things to where you could put him in the game, run him, make sure you highlight the things that he does well without having to worry about him. If he gets hurt, then it all of a sudden tanks your backup quarterback situation and you're left with a really bad one at the position if somebody gets hurt or if two people get hurt. So I think the more padding you have in there, the better, and it opens up Haarberg to do some specialty kind of gadgety type of things, at least more so than he would have in a situation where he's just the straight up backup quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's a freedom that it would allow you, and the big challenge for Nebraska in trying to find a quarterback who could fit in this situation is there are not a lot of guys out there who are just willing to come in and want to play that role. And we can talk a little bit more next segment about why I feel like after talking to them that these players would be okay with that. And you almost have to go this route of finding someone from a smaller school as opposed to, looking in the portal for other Power 5 cast-offs who might want, those guys want to go start somewhere. It's the reason that they're leaving the schools that they're at. As it pertains to Haarberg, if you were to add a quarterback who you felt could handle the offense at a moment's notice, I mean, I think Jalyn Gramstad, because of his pedigree and who he is as a person and as a player, if all of a sudden your starting quarterback twists his ankle and he needs to go in and run a series, he's not going to be wowed by that moment. He at 22 years old with all of the playing time he has under his belt, he's going to be okay. Is he going to give you everything that Dylan or Heinrich would? No, but he's going to be okay in that moment. It's not going to be a disaster out there on the field. And living in that world, if you're Nebraska, you then can do different things with Haarberg as a result. You can get him prepped in practice to add another element to your offense that wouldn't be there if he had to focus entirely on just being ready to go if Dylan couldn't do it.
Right.
So that's beneficial.
Yeah. It's a different mindset. Like, are you the backup quarterback who's going to come in only when the starting quarterback gets hurt and then try to do his job? Or are you the kind of, the guy who's going to come in invariably throughout a series at some point? I think that's an ideal role for Haarberg, considering his athleticism. We know that the staff thinks highly of him as an athlete, and we know that they think that he filled in admirably last year, and I think he did. And so to get him moving and doing different things that Dylan Raiola absolutely will not do this year as a quarterback with the athleticism, that's an ideal role for me. Like I think that adds a ton to the room, and that's a huge deal, and it helps a guy like Daniel Kaelin as well.
It helps Kaelin because then I don't think you have to worry about like pressing him into action. That's more than what he's ready for. If you've got a fourth game ready quarterback, and I mean game ready by September. Like if Nebraska were to make an offer this week, a walk-on offer with NIL possibilities to a lower level quarterback, and that guy shows up here in 2 weeks, let's say July 1st, goes through the second half of the summer, goes through training camp, you may have to ease him into the season before you feel comfortable putting him in a game. But it does allow you to know that unless it's just a complete breakdown when it comes to injuries and performance, you're going to be in a much better spot to allow Daniel Kaelin to play in no more than 4 games. And that to me is the best thing for his development, the best thing for his future as a quarterback in college football at Nebraska, presumably. But we know how college football works, and guys want to play. So where things head for Daniel Kaelin throughout the course of his career, it's a story to be written. And I think the best thing for him, the way it looks right now at Nebraska, would be to play in 4 games or fewer this year. And this gives him a good opportunity to be able to do that. And then maybe he's the starting quarterback at Nebraska 2 years down the road, and he has an extra year of eligibility in part because you added depth in the summer of 2024. So I think that's a big deal on that level also.
A nice soft landing and runway. We talk about it all the time with other positions, to where, man, how much did it throw off a guy's development early in his career because he had to be thrust into playing time early, or he had to be thrusting into a big role early. It's a huge deal, and it could throw off their development, because instead of focusing on your development, you're focusing on playing, and you're focusing on trying to figure out how to get the job done during the game. And they're just different mindsets, especially for a young guy early on. So yeah, I think it would absolutely keep him on the right development track. So it's a big deal for both. Assuming Nebraska likes one of these guys enough to feel like they can come in and be a part of that room just like everybody else.
After the break, let's talk about how this could impact Dylan Raiola, the guy that everyone wants to talk about, and we got to see on the field for a while during the camp on Monday afternoon also. But first, if you are watching sports on TV and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today delivers can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, it's Apper here for the FanDuel Sportsbook, and it is winner take all time in the NBA and in the NHL. And our friends at FanDuel, they're giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. We have a couple series right now in the NHL and the NBA. They are both 2-0 at the moment. So it's time to get in on this action, because you don't know how long they're going to be around. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So that's $150 after you win that $5 bet that you can use on spreads and money lines and player props. You can have a little bit more fun if you grab that extra $150 in bonus bets. Tonight, the Mavericks are back at home for Game 3 in the NBA Finals. They're 2.5-point favorites. So maybe you like a side. The total is 212.5 in the NBA. Maybe you like an over or under. Use that $5 bet, and if you win it, you get $150 in bonus bets. All you have to do is head to FanDuel.com/locked on and get in on the action. Make every playoff shot count. FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Mitch, final few minutes here on a Wednesday. Like I said, we'll be with you back again on Friday morning. We might be getting ready for some College World Series games that day, and a variety of other topics that will, of course, hit as well. So this quarterback situation, we're going to spend a whole show on it because it's pretty interesing. Let's talk about what it means. Yeah, let's talk about what it means to the guy who's in the A chair. Or at least we perceive to be. I don't know. I think we can kind of not say that anymore. He's definitely in the A chair. It's Dylan Raiola.
Yep.
You mentioned he was at the camp, kind of like sitting in a perch and, had his legs crossed and was, writing down notes. No, but he was there watching this post-grad quarterback camp in Nebraska, or post-grad camp, and Nebraska coaches take a keen interest to the quarterbacks. What do you think, in addition of a walk-on quarterback, means for Dylan Raiola?
What's good is that he didn't come out in a golf cart with a driver, and it was someone driving him, not a golf club, but he's not. He's just still another guy in the program. Which, hey, he has never played a game, but I think that that the way that his career has started, the way his first semester went, all the hype and acclaim that is around him, it could lead a different person to get a big head and be full of themselves. But no, he's just Dylan. He's just still Dylan being Dylan. He's the same, looks the same as far as the way that he carries himself. The same way that I saw him when he was a young guy in high school. Like we were talking at the camp about the first time we saw Dylan Raiola throw at a Friday Night Lights camp in just back in 2021. So really not that long ago, in Memorial Stadium, and that's when all of this started with the offers coming. And so as soon as when the campers got out there and Gramstad and Conover were with the quarterbacks, and there was another quarterback there, and they were working with Thomas. Here comes Dylan, and he's just tossing the football around a little bit with Evan Cooper, and talking to people, walking around, having a good time, just enjoying being around the game of football. Kind of like it was a little bit more of a serious face on Dylan when he was there for pro day. But similar, just like, hey, there's something going on in the Hawks, some football. I'm going to go check it out. And at one point, Dylan had a football. He had a football in his hand most of the time. I think he has a football in his hand all the time. Going to a restaurant, got a football in his hand. He's in class, got a football in his hand. That's Dylan. But there was a break in the action, a water break between some of the drills, and he took the ball, and people are looking at him like that's the 5-star guy, and they're like pointing at the goalpost, like, can you hit the crossbar? And he's at the 40 on the near side, so it's 50 yards away from the crossbar. And so, yeah, he just takes it and he just flips the ball, and it misses, but it goes long by like a foot. And they throw the ball back to him, and he does it again. Boom, right off the crossbar. So, I don't know. I don't know what the point of that is. But just everywhere he is all the time, the eyes are on him, the spotlight's on him, and
he delivers.
His arm talent is just kind of not really fair.
Yeah.
But as for what do you think? How do you think that a veteran presence in the quarterback room could help the starter, the young starter?
I don't know. That's interesting. I think what you mentioned at the beginning would be the thing that you're maybe. I mean, Nebraska is attempting to do all they can to not say out loud that Dylan Raiola is their quarterback, but I mean, he is. He's their quarterback, and he's going to be their quarterback this fall. And I think when part of what Nebraska is doing by not saying that is attempting to not let him. They want him to stay hungry, right? They want him to stay hungry over the summer. Yeah. And so bringing in a veteran presence, could potentially, just gets a different sort of vibe in that room. Another person that you have to, because he's already fended off the other people in that room as of right now. Now, in reality, is he actually playing defense as far as his starting job is concerned against anybody in that room? No, he's not. But it brings a different dynamic to it. But like I said at the beginning, Mitch, you kind of have to treat him a little bit differently. He's a starting quarterback. I don't know that it really changes a lot for him. it obviously changes the game if he were to get hurt, and then the room takes a different look to it. But man, in any real way, I don't know. I mean, my answer is kind of no here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think having a veteran set of eyes in the film room with him in the meetings would be nice. I think there's some things that Gramstad in particular would be able to add and be able to help him see. Again, he's running against a different level of competition with what he's seen in high school and NAIA, but I think he's a guy just from talking to him on Monday who would have something to add to the conversation that would be beneficial to Dylan. And I asked both of the quarterbacks. We'll finish with this. They both knew he was there, and they knew exactly who he was and what he represents for Nebraska football. Gramstad has been a fan of the Huskers since he was a kid. He said, I asked him, why would you want to come to a place where the future is set? Like there's a guy, they just recruited a 5-star. What's the appeal for you? And Gramstad said, my mindset has always been to help any way I can. Having won everywhere I've been, I can probably bring something to the team. Any chance I could get at Nebraska, I'd love to help. And then Conover said, I want a place to push me to be the best. I understand some people want to go a place they can play, but just as an athlete, you should think anywhere you can play. So both of those guys are saying the right things, and again, that makes them attractive targets if, in fact, Nebraska does choose to take this route that we've been discussing for the last 30 minutes.
But like you said, that these are the type of people that you're probably that's your pool of people that you're dealing with if you're asking them to come in and take a role like this. Nebraska's already got a starting quarterback, and they already have a future, a kind of heir apparent, or at least they think as well. So it's a different kind of role, and Nebraska might have found that post grad camp that also produced James Williams last year might end up being a pretty nice thing. They got to keep doing that.
Yeah, we'll see. We should know in a few days. I wouldn't think it's going to go much longer than that.
All right, we're out of here on a Wednesday. We'll talk to you guys in just a couple days. But a quick reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today, it's what it's called. It's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every league. Find Locked On Sports Today. It's available now on the free Fire TV channels app.